Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is your host, Skip from BK. On the podcast Dreams Money Combined, we have in the building today, we have Qori B. She's a very talented, very exceptional illustrator, graphic designer. Her goal when it comes to her work is to work with a lot of women of color, young individuals, and also doing something that lets people know what's going on in the world in numerous kind of like ecosystems, people that are dealing with hardships, and why we need to put spotlights on those things. Because the more you know, the more you can make a difference. So I'm not going to talk too much because it's not about me. It's about Qori B. So Qori B, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Glad to get you in the building because I know you booked in, busy, traveling,
yes, I am.
working
Very
all
popular.
the time. Yeah, just we're saying only a portion of her last name because y'all creeps, and for her protection and make sure her mama don't have to kill nobody. Being a very supportive friend, that's all you're gonna get. But her Instagram, if you care, like send her money for her designs, or just because you want to be, sounds like Qori. We're gonna repeat that at the end. But Qori, let's start from the beginning of your journey of life. Okay, you're a New York City girl through and through. Let's talk about it. Your experience in the city, schools. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so actually my schooling prior to high school was very all over the place. I went to maybe 5 different schools before. I can't even count, don't remember all of them, but a lot of them were religious in some way or another. So I started off in, I don't know the order exactly, but I definitely went to schools that were Muslim, Christian, Catholic, the whole 9, anything possible. I did it.
Okay.
Like I was praying in Arabic at one point in my life. I was attending Christian and Catholic church service often as part of schooling. Like my whole junior, I wouldn't call that junior high school. What was that? Grade school experience was based in religion. I had no idea. Obviously, I was just going to school to go to school because I had to. And then I found a place that I was grounded at was Mott Hall, which is a intermediate or junior high middle school.
Harlem, right?
Yeah, it's in Harlem. It's on City College's campus. And so I went there from 5th to 8th grade, graduated from there. That was my most consistent schooling, I'd say. And that's the only place, with the exception of 1 or 2 people, that I remember having friends at.
Wow.
Before that, everything is just, I was moving around too much. I didn't really maintain many friendships, but Mott Hall is where I got like my first group of friends that I wouldn't call us friends now. We're friends, we're acquaintances. But I follow them on Instagram. That's what I'll say.
Okay, so y'all Instagram friends.
Right.
So before we transition to as you get into high school, so in a way of you going to 5 or 6 schools, and the only one that you remember is like Mott Hall. Is it Mott Hall 1 or 2?
1.
Okay, 1. Right, and you grew up in Harlem world the entire time. So it's kind of like, you were kind of like a military kid,
basically,
in Harlem because military. You don't have like a safe place in schooling because you always have to make new friends, and you probably don't even remember the old ones. And so when it comes to that, when it comes to bonds and like making those type of human connections, did that kind of like make you more of like not even introverted, but more kind of like you be peeping things. You be like observant. Yeah,
I'm definitely more reserved to this day. My mom makes jokes all the time that I don't like people. I don't like speaking to people. I actually am social. I'm just not someone who is in a room full of strangers. I don't feel the need to make my presence known. I'm more so once in an intimate setting, once you get to know me, I'm a friendly person. The bonds I did not have or did have in my earlier schooling, I didn't really care about them that much. It didn't affect me until I got to Mott Hall when I was making friends and they were so different from me that it was affecting me versus before. It didn't really matter. Like everyone, and I was also much younger than all my other classmates in other schools because I was however many years younger than them. When I started first grade, I was 4. And so I was like the baby of the classroom.
You were smart. Okay. All right.
Well, I had skipped, I don't know. Did I skip? Yeah, I skipped a grade, or I just didn't go to kindergarten or something like that. Like something very early on that by the time I got to first grade and so on, I was 2 years younger because my birthday is so late in December. And so earlier on, everyone just loved having a baby in the classroom. So it wasn't, so I didn't really care to make friends or anything. I was just getting attention just from existing.
Okay.
And then as I got into, at some point, I went to a in between school where I was like learning, but there were no grades or anything like that, so that I could be put in my proper grade. My mom was uncomfortable with me being in a classroom with older students as I got older, because age is just different.
It'd be weird.
Yeah, so,
kids be weird. Be like, hey, what you doing over there? It's like, excuse me, you're like an old man.
right.
You look old.
So eventually, I was still younger, but at least in my proper year. Like everyone that I was in school with or in class with was born the same year as me. I was just younger because my birthday was late.
So recalibrated.
Right. And so at that point, and also the moving around had a lot to do with, I was only living with my mom, and she was supporting the both of us on her own, and my mom was fairly young. Yeah. My mom was fairly young at the time, and so I only went to private schools for the most part up until Mott Hall. That was my first public school experience, and so she was paying tuition, and the fact that she had to pay that much, it had to be the right environment for me, and so that's why I was moving so much. As soon as something wasn't to her liking or my liking, it was time to go. And that also has a lot to do with why I am the way I am now. I'm very, if I'm not into it, I can just pack up and leave and find the next best thing. So when I got to Mott Hall, I started to make friends, and I still wasn't super social, but I was making friends. But why it was affecting me is because I was the only, to me, as far as I can remember, I was the only Black identifying person, maybe one of 3 in my circle, but the school was all people of color, with the exception of 2 white people, wow. 2 white guys or whatever, but they were all majority Dominican, majority somewhere Spanish speaking, basically.
Oh, so you were just asked out.
Yeah. And so at the time, now, if that was the case now, I'm pretty sure we would all be more on the same page, but then it was very them and me. I was the Black girl for the most part. Shock. Yeah. And so being someone, even if my peers looked exactly like me, I didn't speak Spanish, so it was just a different experience and different. And so that a lot of things played into that. I was just talking to my mom about that this morning, that a lot of things did play into that and me making friends. And I didn't let it bother me that much, but it was something that I always remembered and carried with me. And it almost gave me a little bit of identity issues, because I was unsure of I knew who I was and I knew where I come from and all that stuff, but just the fact that I was with people that even looked like me and I was still so different, I'm like, what is this?
Because you were feeling you didn't feel like you belonged, because
right.
They were just in this world where they're kind of experiencing both
right.
Black and kind of that Hispanic yes. thing. They're speaking Spanish and you're just
I'm just okay,
what?
Well, okay. Right. But I'm here. And also where I lived in Harlem, I moved a couple times, but still in Harlem, but I lived around a lot of Black people. And so the fact that I'm in Harlem, this particular part of Harlem, is also a lot of Spanish-speaking people. So it was I felt like the odd one out. It's not like they were in my neighborhood. I was in their neighborhood, that kind of thing. And so
nobody wanted to teach you Spanish. This is
no.
That's messed up. Okay.
Right. So, it wasn't that big of a deal at the time. But in retrospect, I can look back and say that it did affect me, and it was never anything negative per se. It was just something that I noticed, and that was always in the back of my mind. So that was a big thing for me in middle school.
So how do you get to Tech? Because Brooklyn Tech
right.
is where we met. You're one of my younger paddle. Actually, we didn't even go to school at the same time. This is how you know much of I just loved the step team, which we'll talk about later. But how do you go from Harlem to how does your mama allow this to happen?
She was not. When you get into school or you get into anything, you have exciting news and your parents, you tell them first. And so they were not excited. They were just oh, yay, but whatever. So I wasn't a good student necessarily in middle school. And you know how in New York you have to, almost like you're applying to college, you fill out the list with the 10 high schools you want to go to. I got in the order that you put them in, they basically, if you get into your first school, that's it. If you don't, then they go to your second school, your third, and so on. I probably got into maybe my 8th school because my grades were poor.
Okay.
But I happened to take the exam for the specialized high schools or whatever. So again, my first choice, Brooklyn Tech, was not high on my list for those schools. I had Stuyvesant first because it was in the city, Bronx Science because it was in the Bronx and closer to me. But I ended up getting into Brooklyn Tech. So when we got that letter in the mail and I saw I had more than one school on my page, I was already excited because that means I don't have to go, no shade, but I didn't want to go to FDA, which was my zone school. FDA was my zone school, and I didn't want to go there because all my friends went there, and I knew I'd be on the block. That's
that would be just the same thing you experienced last time, just
nah. Yeah, so I didn't want to go there. That was last resort. I got into at least one of the schools I put on my regular high school list, so that was good. But then I saw Brooklyn Tech, and I was like, oh, I'm going. Like, I'm smart. I got to go there. So I called my mom. I was in the lunchroom, I remember, and I was hiding under the table in the cafeteria, and I called my mom and was like, I got in. And she was like, oh, that's great, but not as excited as I'm used to hearing her. And I was like, whatever. So I called my dad, and he was like, you got in where? And I was like, Brooklyn Tech. He said, that's in Brooklyn. I was like, yeah, it is. And so basically, I don't know if they had a conversation amongst themselves about it, but it was like this whole big thing of, well, how is she going to get to school? Mind you, I'm 13, so that's pretty young to be traveling from Harlem to Brooklyn. And then at the time, like, especially my parents also were born and raised in Harlem, so they're from that time where it was major beef. Like, you did not go there unless you were fighting or whatever.
Yeah, Harlem and BK just, for some reason, just like, nah.
Yeah, so they were, like, afraid for me to go. At the same time, knew that it was a great school. And at the time, I swore I wanted to be an architect. So, in Tech is engineering school. So, it was like, oh, yeah, it's perfect. Those dreams have changed, obviously. But, so I went there, my first day of school, probably like the first 3-4 days or something. My mom would take the train with me all the way there. We left my house at like 6:45 in the morning, 6:30. And we would go, yeah, she is. We would get on the train and we got there. And as soon as we got off the train and I started seeing, we're walking up towards Tech, and I started seeing all these kids smoking cigarettes. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, I have to be grown. Like, this is it. This is high school. Like, these are adults here. They go to school with me. So me and my mom saw that, and we're like, wow. My mom was like, you got to grow up, whatever. Eventually, I was like, stop taking me to school. Like, I'm grown now. I can go on my own.
Yeah, she's like this little 13-year-old, like, nah, mom, I can handle it myself.
Right. And I did. And initially, I did see some other people from uptown on the train every day, and so I would start. Some of them didn't go to Tech, some did, but we all went to school in Brooklyn, so I started making friends with them. Like, I remember I had one friend that went to Bishop Loughlin that I became friends with because he lived uptown, I believe. Well, yeah, because we took the train together. A couple people that went to Tech I became friends with because of that, so it became easier as time went on. But I was excited to. I don't think I had ever been to Brooklyn prior to that day, my first day of high school, so I was just excited to be in a new place, and I felt independent. And the school is huge, so
massive,
it's like
10, 12 floors.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Like, if you want to focus, you can focus. If not, you
oh yeah.
Yeah.
But just quick touch point while you're talking about this Brooklyn chapter in your life. Mm-hmm. So you wanted to be an architect, and just coming from a kid that actually did the architect major, I probably think you probably would have did better than me, because if those of you don't know, architecture is part. Oh my goodness, this is so rude. Gotta mute my phone. Oh, this is disrespectful, but. Architecture has a lot of, like, obviously you need the visuals, so you need to be able to design an interior and exterior. I was not good at that. And you also be able to create the blueprints on the computer and, like, the 3D rendering and modeling. So what happened that made you go, I really want to do this, for that short period of time of, like, that being, like, a cool...
I don't remember, but I do know that, so my parents were not together at any point that I can remember, but they both were and are currently married to other people. So I've had 2 step parents for as long as I can remember.
Oh my God, that's love.
Yeah. So my stepdad, who is a commercial director, he's a creative. I'll use that term because he's into, like, everything. If I mention something, he'll provide me with tools or whatever, or, like, information, or take me to something.
Second dad.
Yeah, to go see or learn about that thing. And so I remember wanting architecture at first was, like, my thing, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And my mom as well would give me, like, books on architecture and, like, buildings and whatever. I have no idea why I wanted to do that, but I also, maybe I saw something on TV. I don't know, because I know later on I knew what college I wanted to go to because of a TV show. So I think maybe that, I don't know, that had to have something to do with it.
So real quick, because your mom is a very lavish person. She's awesome. Yeah. So obviously this is a conversation about you, but a conversation about just where you came from. Mm-hmm. Was there any times going with mom shopping and seeing, like, these big buildings or seeing something grandiose? Like, I feel like sometimes subconsciously, especially with you, because you've just taken a lot of information visually. That's the reason why your pieces are just so amazing. Have you ever, like, realized that sometimes because mom is lavish, that you go out with her and be like, oh, I can do that. Yeah. I can design this. This looks nothing. Like, you probably don't even think about it. It's like, I feel like for you, because knowing the people you come from, just like experiencing life, you probably didn't even realize that I can do better than these people. I just feel like knowing your like very confident way of just looking at things, you probably were like, I can outdo these people.
Yeah, probably, now that I think about it, that probably is a similar story to how it happened. I think that my mom probably introduced me to the term of architecture to put into a word of what I wanted to do. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. And I was young. I was 13 when I started high school. So I was probably like 10 when I was like, I want to be an architect, which is really young.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, that probably is closer to how the story went. But going to Brooklyn Tech, that completely changed that dream for me because I did not like any of the technical. It's a technical high school. I didn't like any of the technical classes I had to take. And by the time it came to choosing majors in that school, I was like, I can't do any of this. Like, I don't like math. I don't like science. This is a math. It's like everything that I'm here for is not what I'm into. Until I found the creative majors at Tech, where I was like, oh, I like this. This is better. I can do it.
So what was the major? Because I know the major. What was the major?
I got into media and communications primarily because they had this beautiful Mac lab that when we had, what is that night called? Whatever night that is, where we all run around to the different, like they have each major set up in a classroom.
It, like at the nighttime, it was like the major night.
Right. So when I got into that room, I was like, oh, whatever major this is, I'm in here. Like, I don't care what it is. And then I found out what it was. And all my friends that were in the year ahead of me were in that major, and I was like, oh, I'm definitely doing this. Like, so
these are people that you actually care about, because we're going by the trade line. Before you're just like, I don't care about these people. I don't care about these people. Oh, these people are cool. Okay.
Yeah. So like the class of, I was 2011, so 2010, a lot of those students that I saw that were in media, to me, it almost seemed like the major where you had the most fun. Like, I wasn't even concerned about what they were learning. I didn't know exactly what classes were in it. I was more so like, it's a creative major. They have mad fun doing whatever it is they're doing. I saw them on those Macs all the time. Like, so, and from what I saw on, we were on Facebook by then. So yeah, so when I saw on Facebook, I was like, oh yeah, let me do this. They have fun. They're not as stressed. They're not walking around with T-squares like the other students.
So school is something else. The interesting thing about this conversation we're going to have is like, there was also some type of, I don't know why schools in like high school and college want to do like this whole, oh, you went to this major, and people want to puff up their chest. First of all, shut up. But it's kind of funny because my dad was like, you're going to do architecture because you're not going to do media. And kind of going back into it, I wish I had access to like that computer stuff because the way social media is now, Sean, I would be ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So is this where you started kind of like getting together of like the, hello, Qori, like getting that illustration like piece in your mind going?
Yes. So that major, over those 2 years, you take graphic design, photography, film, animation, and studio art 2D. So, and the studio art course is an AP class. So you have to take it seriously to make this portfolio at the end of the year that you will submit. And that was the same portfolio that I used to get into college. And so that was the one class I took very seriously, well, as serious as I was in high school. And the graphic design class, literally in that room, I remember I had Miss Tansman, who, she was dope to me. She was real quirky. So, you know, high schoolers, they're like always making fun of her or whatever. But I thought she was dope because in that room was where I first learned like the very basic of graphic design tools. Like, I had never played around with it before outside of like, you know, stuff you make for like MySpace. Like back in the day when I was using Microsoft Paint, like that's different. But that was expressing my creativity. This is where I first got any kind of technical skill, was in that classroom. And so that class, and then my film and animation. I hated animation because it was just so hard and tedious. Like now I'm trying to get back into it, and I wish I had paid more attention then. But it was just so hard. Took all of my time back then. But the film portion of that class I love because we used to like make music videos and stuff like that. And I was in class with all my close friends in high school. Like every single one of them, we all had class together, or we all were in that major and had the same classes. So I enjoyed that a lot. But yeah, that graphic design class and the studio art class were the two classes where I got the most foundation technical skills that I use today. Again, just like middle school, I was not a good student in high school as far as my grades, to the point where, well, the school was so big, so there were only like, 7 guidance counselors and like 50 million of us.
Yeah, it was all of us. So I don't know how they got any work done.
So in one of my little 10-minute appointments, I remember a very similar story, but all creatives in the world where the guidance counselor is like, oh, you're not going to get into this, and this school. You need to reach lower or whatever.
Wow.
So as a result.
Shout out to y'all for not doing your job.
Word. So as a result, and I already knew I was going to apply. I wasn't relying on my grades to get into college. Whatever school I wanted to go to, I was going in through the art school. Whether I was going to art school or not, I was going to get in that way and then figure it out after I got in. That was my plan from the beginning because my grades just weren't hot. So at the time, I knew that I was watching Project Runway a lot. This has nothing to do with graphic design, but I knew they had it's a design school generally, and so they're known for fashion, but they have all types of design, which is Parsons. And so I was like, oh, I definitely want to go there. It just looked like the popular New York school to go to. I wanted to stay at home. Love that school. That was like one of my top choices. I applied to like Syracuse, Northeastern, schools like that, and Temple was those three I think were my only like normal regular schools that weren't art schools. The rest I applied art schools because my guidance counselor scared me so much about not getting in, and my parents, it wasn't an option for me to not go to school. Or more so my dad was like, you have to go to college. My mom was like, oh yeah, if you want to take a year off and travel, you can. Like she was more lax, but I felt a little pressure to get into these schools. So I ended up applying to 13 schools, and I believe I got into all of them. If not, I got into 12. And they were all through the art program. So I had to do the personal statement stuff and then also submit my portfolio. And I think the portfolio itself saved me, honestly.
You probably drew your ass off for that because they were just like, what is this girl trying to do here?
Yeah.
All right, so that transition from college to going to Philadelphia with Temple. So you're starting to get into your bag of, have you been taking on clients yet? Or this is when you're in like...
No, I wasn't taking on clients yet. So yeah, I did choose to go to Temple. I chose to go there because I realized as my senior year went on that I don't want to be at home. I just want to be close to home.
You're smart, because I was about to say, what's wrong with you?
At first I wanted to stay, and I was like, nah, let me leave. So I went away, which I love that I went away because I got to meet so many different kinds of people from all over the place. I had never heard of a DMV until I went to Temple, and people, when I asked where they're from, they're like, the DMV. I'm like, why are they talking about the DMV? And I thought they were talking about the Department of Motor Vehicles. I was like, what is going on? But then I realized, whatever. So I learned so much just from leaving, period. Like, forget the school part. Going away was like a really big deal to me. And then I didn't go to the art school. I ended up in the communications school under the advertising department, which has an art direction track within it. So I took art direction as my major. And
were you bummed about that? Like, that kind of, because I think with you, a lot of times you're very... it's really this or it's this. Mm-hmm. So I don't really think of you taking like a plan B. Were you kind of bummed at first?
No, I think ultimately, well, also outside of the fact that I wanted to leave home, I also thought more seriously about what kind of degree I would have coming out of college. I was not someone that was like, I have to go to college to get a degree. I have 4 parents, and none of them graduated from college, and they all are living fine. Like, and my mom in particular and my stepdad are like, my stepdad's really successful. My mom is successful as an entrepreneur. She's done it all, and even before she was an entrepreneur, she was working at these big name companies in their marketing departments and did all these cool things that I saw growing up. And she didn't graduate from college either. My dad he's made of money, but he acts like he's not, but he also didn't graduate. So I'm just looking at these people that raised me, and I'm like, this isn't necessary, but they're telling me it is, but I'm just like, man, whatever, like, they're just being parents. Mm-hmm. And so when I got to the point of choosing a college, I wanted to go away, but I also knew that the degree I had, if I was going to go and I was going to spend that money or take out those loans, I wanted a regular bachelor. Like, I didn't want a fine arts degree. I didn't want to confine myself to a fine arts degree and then have to go get a job that accepts a fine arts degree versus if that is so important to jobs that I have a degree versus me going somewhere that'll see that I just have a bachelor's and be like, oh yeah, that's cool. Because some places they're like, oh, you have a degree in creative writing. Okay.
All of a sudden people can't read the paper. It's like, right. What is this?
Right.
You spent all this money on this?
So I was like, let me not get that F between the B and A and just go ahead and get a bachelor's. And so I thought, let me go. My roundabout way was to take art direction because it was essentially just like graphic design, but with more applied focus. So instead of just designing and learning you didn't get any of the technical skills. That was only downside. I had to do a lot of around the way finessing to get into art school courses because you're not really allowed. If you're not in art school, you can't take those classes. But I had to like finesse to get into some foundational courses to learn something.
Shout out to your determination.
I had to. But if it wasn't that, it was going to be YouTube because you could really do anything, honestly. But I was in that major and all of my design skill was used toward advertising and learning how to market towards people and why you would put this on this side of the page versus this side, which I don't think I would have learned in a regular design course. It's more so just designing for just to have things, look poppin', be technical. There is a reason to everything, but where advertising came in, it was more so like specific purpose, problem solving for businesses, or there was numbers involved, like audiences, all that. And
so is at this point when you're in like the college, so high school, kind of getting that intro, getting the wheels turning. But now in this course, you're taking this like, all right, art direction, which is very important for the things we'll talk about later in your positions and even your position now of just how do you see this from this image, make it bigger, make it real, make it have impact, right? So this is what you're learning right now.
Right.
So we're still not at Hello Qori yet.
Nope.
Oh my
I
goodness,
did a lot.
wow.
So it was literally like my whole advertising degree experience, college experience was how to take what this company wants on paper and turn it into a campaign, essentially, that looks good and translates well and solves a problem that they want to solve. And so in that, I had to take, the intro classes. I had to take media buying, media planning, things that I had no intention of getting into, but it was just good to learn about it. It was a very well-rounded advertising course. And then just like tech, my last 2 years, my junior, senior year, was when I focused on what I specifically wanted to do, which was art direction. And so there, my art direction professor was so mean. I'll never forget. He was like the meanest person ever.
He was like stink mean or mean, or he was like grumpy?
He was just hard. He was cool, he's an art director, so he was just cool, laid back, but his critique was like punching you in the throat. Like before all my critiques,
okay.
yes. Before all my critiques were like, they were like kind of harsh, but you get over it. Like you would go home and be thinking about that for weeks. Like, damn, I suck. Like, what am I gonna do now? And of course now I'm like thankful for it. The same thing now. Whenever I hear bad critiques, I have to choose to take it as a learning lesson or as something constructive versus choosing to be upset at it. So I learned that early in college because those were like the hardest 2 years with that professor. I had him both years. And I was like, yo, I can't do this, but I could, I got over it and I handled it. And so because of those courses, I basically got all my skills together between those courses and sneaking into the art school. And I was able to basically learn the basics that I needed to eventually start my own business. Where Hello Qori comes in, it was more of an underlying thing. So my whole time in college, I was working just to offset the cost of...
Was that like Green Street or Momentum Worldwide or something like that?
Both. Okay. So Green Street, Green Street is a consignment shop. They have stores in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey. At the time, I don't know what's up now. And so I started there as a sales associate. I just wanted a job to get some extra cash. I did work at Chipotle briefly before that before college and when I started college. So that was like a random thing. And so when I left Chipotle, I was like, damn, I need cash. Like I
feel like you weren't even, I didn't even know you worked at Chipotle. Yeah. So wait, was this like a quick month? It was like, I'm not doing this.
No, it was I don't remember how long it was. I don't think it was a full year, but it was a series of months where I was working there folding burritos, and I know all the ins and outs of Chipotle. Like I still go to that Chipotle now. I went there recently, but what made me leave was like no shade or anything, but I did not want to clean the bathroom. And so when they asked me to clean the bathroom, I did it maybe 3 times, and I was just fed up. I called my mom, like I can't clean it anymore. I don't want to do it. People are disgusting. I couldn't do it, and I knew I could be doing something else with that time. I was coming home late, smelling like beans. Like, it was just too much. So I eventually went and applied for a job. I actually found it on Craigslist. I didn't know what Green Street was, but I applied and was just like, whatever. I had my interview at the location on South Street, and South Street is like a really, really popular street in
Pretty
Philly.
much like one of the main streets that you can do almost anything.
Right.
There.
And so I was like, oh, so it's like a real store. I can go there. So I went, I got the job. I was working there. It ended up being 3 full years that I worked there. I went from sales associate to key holder to assistant manager, which was my last position. Once I was assistant manager, I was working outside of Philadelphia, but still in Pennsylvania, in Bryn Mawr. It's not too far out. I was driving, so it was super easy. But at the time I was there, school was ending, and I was like, well, this job has helped me so much to like offset the costs of living and being a student and tuition and so on. But
it's not real money.
It's not real money. And at that point, I was working full time, but I was still in school, so I had a salary position. And then once the year ended, I was still at that salary position once I graduated, but I had to figure it out because my lease was ending. Am I going to stay in Philly? Like, what am I going to do? And so I ended up, after graduation, I ended up staying for another full, so graduation was in May. When January came around, I was like, all right, I don't want to be folding clothes for the rest of my life. I can't do it. This is not what I intended to do at this time. I know I want to be a graphic designer. I had the tools. I just graduated. I got to figure it out. And so that is when I went ahead, I believe right at graduation, I went ahead and my mom purchased my domain for me. And I don't know where Hello Qori came from.
Shout out to Mom.
Yeah. I don't know where Hello Qori even came from, but that was that. And I didn't take it seriously. I had the website, but I didn't take it seriously until I decided I was going to quit my job. So it was a little drama or something that pushed me out, that helped me to quit.
So this is Green Street. So did you already leave Momentum Worldwide before?
Oh, I forgot about that. So Momentum, I actually was interning there for a summer, and that was in St. Louis, Missouri, which was different. I was not used to that environment.
That was just okay.
It was very different. Different in more ways than one. Different because one is St. Louis, and it's nothing like New York or Philly. And I was actually right outside of St. Louis. So I was in St. Louis every day. I probably stayed in St. Louis, and then the office itself was in some other place in Missouri that I can't remember the name of. But I got into that internship. I didn't apply to go to St. Louis. I got into it because I applied to the multicultural advertising intern program, which I believe is based in New York, but they take MAIP,
right? Because I'll be seeing that. Because shout out to Bennett. He was part of that program, and a lot of other alumni who amazing careers. You'll probably hear him in future interviews. Blah blah blah.
Yeah. So there was a lot of us there actually, and so when I got into that program, it was a big deal. They basically take all the finalists and disperse them. So they open up your portfolio or whatever it is, to all these agencies, and the agencies pick out what interns they want to take.
Got it. Okay.
And so I got into Momentum. Momentum has offices in New York and St. Louis, and I believe maybe Kansas City or something like that. I don't know. But unfortunately, I had to go to St. Louis. Not unfortunately, but that was not ideal. I did not want to go to the Midwest, and I was bored.
So just to understand, because especially when we started this conversation about Momentum, and you were just like St. Louis, and it's just like, I'm just going to assume, even though we already know this, the population of people that look like you is very, very low.
It was me.
It wasn't. It definitely wasn't lit. So
no, it wasn't. And I was 20 at the time, so I couldn't do anything. I did end up having fun, but I had to work hard for my fun. So when I got there, why I said it was different was, it was St. Louis, and looking around, whatever area I was in, MAPE, the program, they send multiple, they usually send at least 2 students to each place. As far as I know, that year I was the only person that was solo in my city, and I didn't even have that connection. Yeah. And so when I got there, I was like, all right. And then they told me I would be staying with other people in the apartment I was in. It was a 4-bedroom. No one ever came, so I had a 4-bedroom apartment to myself that whole summer.
Oh, it was bad and bougie. You had a whole to yourself?
It was a lot. So
you had 4 closets.
I did. And I was taking the bus into work every day. I was the only person in the office that did not have a car. I didn't bring my car there. I didn't even think about doing that, because why? And so I felt a little different. All the interns there were from they either went to school there or were from that city or whatever. And so again, I'm the one person that was out of place and
so
not knowing.
So you're going right back to my hall.
And then I was the one black girl. And so the whole office, there was one black guy I remember being there, but the whole entire office was so white. Now, it was dope because that was my first time in an advertising agency, but then that was also my first time realizing that ad agencies are white and male. And to this day, I don't think I would, like, I don't want to say I wouldn't, but I don't think that that's the direction I want to go in as far as like places to work. I'm just not someone that would be comfortable in those environments.
Yeah.
I don't think that working in a place where I'm the only one is something that I ever want to do. Like,
That's
it's
mad
just, it's
pressure. It
weird,
doesn't feel
especially
good.
now. It's 2020. Why is it still like that? So I was there. I got over it. Like, I learned so much from that internship. All the people I worked with were really dope. I learned how to pitch at that internship. I learned how to do, like, I learned all the technical words for the things that I learned in college, like how to apply them to a real job and real clients. Working with clients, that was my first time working with clients. So while I was there, and that was the summer before my senior year. So that was actually when my idea to start freelancing popped up. And I believe that was actually when my mom purchased the domain. And then I graduated that following year. And then I took it seriously when I was ready to quit my job at Green Street.
So everything's coming
Yeah.
full circle. So you were at Green Street during your time
Yeah.
on Temple. Did that quick lick
Yeah.
in St. Louis.
Yeah, they let me go for those months to
quick
intern.
lick.
Yeah.
So you're there for like probably like what? Like a summer, like 3 or 4
It
months?
was 3 months, 4 months,
Okay.
something like that.
You come back, finish, graduate, walk, flex. Now, right there, Green Street, you're just like, nah, I can't do this.
Yeah, I was like, I already had a taste of working life, like in a job that I was working toward in college. And so I had a little push. Whatever happened isn't important. Like, it was so irrelevant, but I was like, this is the time. And I ended up quitting on my last day was the same day of my hire date. So it was exactly 3 years. Like, if it was like February 12th that I got hired, I quit on February 12th, 3 years later.
That ended that chapter
Yeah, that
forever.
was a sign. I'm big on signs. I was like, oh yeah, perfect. I'm supposed to leave. So once I left that job, I even tried to, every job I had in general, I would try to do some kind of graphic work here and there. Like, even my very first portfolio out of Temple, one of my projects was for Green Street. I didn't give it to them. They didn't want it, but it was dope. Everyone's favorite thing in my portfolio was that project. I just created a series of ads for Green Street. It was really cool. If I looked at it now, I'd probably cringe or throw up. But
I mean, it's
at
early
the time,
steps, but
yeah,
they missed out on you.
Yeah, so I ended up leaving Green Street, and I was living in this 3-bedroom duplex at the time with my 2 friends. And we were in West Philly. My rent was like $450 at the time.
Wait, what?
Yes. Between the 3, each of us paid $450. And we were in a duplex, and it was like big. We had our issues or whatever, but whatever. The rent was $450, so it wasn't really much I could complain about. And at this time, I was like, well, I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent, so I need to make money. And so that's when I took HelloQori.com seriously, and I started like putting myself
clients,
out there. Yeah,
stuff.
any work I ever had done, schoolwork, random stuff that I just thought of and decided to do, I put it in my portfolio on that website. And I didn't identify whether it was real work or not. I just put it up there, and eventually word of mouth got me like my first 2 or 3 clients, and then since then it's just been a thing.
So with the vectoring, like I see you taking some pictures from friends, some celebrities, yourself, and very amazing living life images. What I love looking at your images, it reminds me, I gotta actually buy your art because I be having that in my to-do list and I be forgetting it. When we were at an event, and I was at an event for 2 reasons. One reason doesn't matter anymore. You were the other reason. Yeah. So try to positive thoughts. But when it comes to like your designs of like, you know, I see Rihanna, I see Beyonce, I see very powerful Black women, and you just embodying kind of like your essence of thinking of people of color, obviously Black women. How did you make it so groovy? How did you come to this style? Because your style is very vibrant, right? Even when you have like the softer colors, like the pastels, like the light, kind of like light but pale yellow look I'm looking at. I can always spot your artwork, and obviously this is all about you gassing you up. But I just think that it takes some time, as you said, when it comes to the cringing, when it comes to the work. How do you feel like this is the type of kind of like energy I want to put into your to the art?
My style itself is forever going to be evolving. So even when I look back on things that I did earlier, I'm like, yeah, that's still like, I could see someone making that exact thing now and it's still being popping. But to me, it's like I've evolved since then. So it's not like it's bad. It's just like, it's just different now. And so I'm sure 5 years from now, if I illustrate something, it'll look different from even now, if I did, it will look different from what I did. Like that Formation one with Beyonce that I did, that was 2016. And I remember I made that video came out while I was still at Green Street. My sister, I have a 4-year-old sister.
Shout out to her.
Yes, she just turned 4. So she was born on Valentine's Day of 2016. And so while my stepmom was in labor, we were in the hospital and I was just in the corner in a chair with my feet up on the bed and I was making that piece. And so when it was done, I think I finished, like the baby was born. So I was just like, all right, this is done. And so I just left it and went and, held the baby or whatever. And so when I went back to it, it doesn't have any faces, any features. It's literally just silhouettes, but just easily recognizable. I like that a lot. You can tell as women of color, I just enjoy that. And so I left that as is, and I repeated that style a couple times. And then after that, I started adding faces and getting more into detail with it. I take a lot of references from pop culture and things that Black people specifically would understand and recognize. You don't see... You do see a lot of that, but it's almost like... It's
not in the forefront. Like, we're being honest.
Yeah, it's not in the forefront. And it's also, I just want to be relatable. That's what's most important to me. I have this thing where people because I don't consider myself an artist, but I also don't consider this is art and this isn't. I think all things creative can be seen as art. And so I don't want to... I reject a space where certain types of aesthetics or whatever are not considered art. Like if one of my friends' paintings is next to a Kehinde Wiley painting, I'm still going to think both pieces are art. You know what I'm saying? Like no matter the mastery level or whatever. And so with those things, I like to include things that people can relate to because that is also art, and that's not like, I don't want people to think that they're not into art because they don't understand this one painting. You can understand this. It's very simple. You get it, but it's still art, and this is for you. I also do a lot of illustration just to keep my hand and my mind busy. And not necessarily, I don't always sit down like, oh, I'm so inspired, let me make this. Sometimes I'm just like, I need to make something because I haven't been doing enough creating on my own. And
trying to get the reps in.
Yeah. And so it's like, instead of, almost like, it's like riding a bike, you never forget it, but you always want to keep doing it. And then even in practicing like in that way, I get better each time, or I find new techniques and ways to do things or whatever.
So here's my thing, right? So we quit the job, like 10 toes down into Hello Qori, right? When do you make the move back to New York? When do you, because there's another job that's actually in New York. Like, how did you make that jump from I'm out of Philly, I'm back home with the rentals, with the rentals, we're back home in the city that helped make you? So
when I quit my job, I still had about I had 6 months left on my lease in Philly, and so I stayed through the remainder of that, and the website basically carried me through that. And at the time, my rent was so low, so it didn't matter, but I was charging very, very low. Like, in retrospect, at the time, I was like, oh my God, I'm about to ask them for $200 for a logo. I can't believe it. Now, I would smack myself. If I charge someone $200, like, that's just way too low for the amount of time and effort and the end product or whatever, and then especially, like, whatever, that's another conversation. But we're gonna get there. But I was just doing enough to get by, to have money in my pocket, pay the rent, whatever. By the time, and I opened up my first credit card because now I have a business. So let me get a credit card so I could buy myself an iMac or whatever.
Expenses.
Yeah, I was wilding, but I did that. And then when my lease ended, I packed my stuff up and I moved back to my mom's house. While I was there, my main mission was I gotta go. I can't live here. So, sorry, Mom. So when I was there, I was like, yeah, I gotta go. So I continue on with that website, but then I also started bartending. Okay. In Brooklyn at Therapy Wine Bar. That's when I was there.
Okay. Full circle. Makes sense.
Yes. So I was there with a few of my friends. We were all bartending there, and that's where I was making the bulk of my money. I was not working. So I was working there from 4 p.m. to midnight or 4 to 2. All night, whatever nights they were. And that was great because it was just like easy money or something I enjoyed doing. It wasn't very stressful. But reality was like I had to keep interviewing. I had to find somewhere to work. So while I was there with my friend Alex, who also worked there, she interviewed at this place called the Holding Company. And when she got there, she was like, she did the interview, but she was like, well, this isn't for me, but I have a friend that could come in and do this job. And so the woman, her name is Betty. She is an older woman, very, very nice. She said, oh yeah, bring her in or tell her to come in and meet me, whatever. So Alex called me. I was out with a friend that day and we were sitting on the steps of the Brooklyn Museum. And she called me. I was like, what did she call me for? Do I have to come into work? Like, what's going on? So I answered. And she was like, oh yeah, you should go in for this interview. It's at this place in the city, whatever. So I go in for the interview. She offers me the job on the spot. I think it was literally off the back of she liked my personality and how I looked, and she liked Alex too. And so she was just like, okay, whatever, like come work for me. She didn't look at my portfolio until after I was hired, I think. I don't remember, but I ended up there. That company is a marketing agency, so I was a marketing assistant and graphic designer. It is a very, very small company. It is just her and I in the office, and then we hire in like people that are contractors or whatever. The purpose of that company was essentially to be the middleman between big companies and like influencers or whatever. So if this company wants to get this product in the hands of these influencers, they come to us, we figure out what we're going to do. It's going to be like an interactive box with these things, whatever, and then I would design the box and then we send it off to the influencers or whoever it went to. Okay. That was cool. It was nice. It was my first New York job experience. It was my first time in a salary position close to what I was doing in college. Wasn't much art direction or anything like that involved, not a whole lot of freedom, but it was a job. And it was graphic design. And so I wasn't being picky. Now, the salary was extremely low, and so I could not live on my own, but I did not quit bartending. So while I was at the holding company, I was working there 10 to 6, and then sprinting to the bar to work 7 to 2 or whatever the hours were. And then I would get home at 3 and do it again the next day.
So how long you did that for?
That I did probably a little under, 7 months. I ended up quitting both. No, I ended up quitting just the holding company. And I quit before I had another job, but luckily by the time my 2 weeks was up, that following Monday was my first day at the Soze agency, which is where I work now.
Say it one more time.
The Soze agency.
Okay, good.
Yes, I know everyone can't pronounce it.
I'd be like, I just meant to be calling it like the S agency just because I'd be reading it, it's like, I feel stupid. Like, I don't know what it sounds like.
It actually is a Zulu word. So it would be hard to pronounce, but that is what it's pronounced. Oh, that's how it's pronounced.
So now we're at this company that you've been. You're still there right now, and you've been there for
3 years.
3 years right now. And this is where a bulk of, I would say, from the outside looking in, you're going to explain that more, but just a lot of personal growth, just a lot of like evolution of visuals and just storytelling in the work, because you've always told stories in some of your freelancing when it comes to your personal things, or if you're doing logos for like clients and stuff like that. But I feel like right here, I feel like you found like a greater purpose in the work. That's me, but you'll probably explain that more in detail. Like how was that process of, you worked at a previous place for 7 months. Is this a space where it's like you working as like, this is it. This is in the right direction of where I want to go with the type of jobs I want.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how I found the agency itself, but I remember having like a single PDF. It might have been in like a random group chat or something I was in, but I saw a single PDF of the job description. It was for a junior graphic designer. I found that earlier in the year, I guess. I don't even know when I applied, but by the time they contacted me, it was like the beginning of March. I was actually going on a trip with this big group trip company. And when they contacted me, it was the day before my flight out to St. Lucia. And so they were like, oh, just come in before your flight. And I was like, what? And I went anyway, because I was like, well, I definitely want to leave this job that I'm at now, so let me just go. And so I went. With vacation on my mind. I was very, very excited to leave, but I was like, let me focus and get this interview done. I get there and I see the employees, the staff, and they're all majority people of color. And I was like, oh, what is this? So, and I had no idea what the company was. You could not search. It was like a ghost company. You couldn't search them. They had no website. The most I could see was like a couple tweets, and the person tweeting them was verified. So I was like, okay, it's legit. Like, this is a real place. And so when I got there, they explained what the agency was, and I didn't know at the time, but they work in a lot of social impact work. And so I'm someone that if I was not directly impacted by the issue, I wasn't paying attention to it at all. Like, I knew these things existed, but I didn't, they don't relate to me. They don't impact me directly. And so what can I do? That's how it was. And so when I got there, eventually I got the job after a few interviews, and my very first project was on Immigrant Heritage Month, which the company itself basically came up with, and it's now a real thing. So that was also really cool to me. Yeah.
So they basically kind of like whatever the word is. I want to say ideated,
yeah.
Oh my God.
That is a hard word.
Oh my God, it's hard, like so hard with pronunciations. I got working as a speaker, but they made that a real thing, and I feel like that's like a testament to a lot of the things that you guys done, where it's just like, yeah, I saw this, I knew this existed, but this hurts. Like when you just realize, like, oh my God, type things.
So the company itself, it's only 5 years old. It's a creative agency. We're based in Dumbo, and we create large-scale social impact campaigns, and they're rooted in our values, which are authenticity, compassion, and equity. And one thing that is like super important to the company is that we don't do any work that we don't believe in. So it's not about profit or anything like that. We have a triple bottom line, which is people, planet, profit, in that order. So people always come first, then planet, and then profit. And the issues that we work on range from immigration to climate justice to criminal justice, things like that. Also, what's really special about it is that a lot of the company is made up of people who are directly impacted. So we've had formally undocumented people that work there that were undocumented while working there. We have like all sorts of people who are directly impacted by the criminal justice system, so on. And these projects that we create, it's we believe that art is like a really big or an important vehicle to drive change, which you've seen. You came to the Museum of Broken Windows. Like we do a lot of we do a lot of exhibits using artists, especially directly impacted artists as well, to tell their stories. It's all about storytelling and changing discourse and things like that. And so I think the work is super important, but what mattered to me was being able to to go to work but still feel like I'm doing something important.
And also seeing people that look like you, so you feel like not the oddball, because I feel like in your life we're just kind of seeing a very interesting interaction with your surroundings, right? Whereas like didn't have like those consistency with the school until like Mod Hall 1, right? After Mod Hall 1, Brooklyn Tech, meet some more people, make those friends, Temple, more people. Then you go to like the internship and you're just like,
I'm like, what?
And then you go to this company, you're like, And then you're at this place where it's just like, all right, cool, I'm invested. Because now it's just like, I don't feel like I have to not be Qori. And it feels like when someone like you always want to be Qori. You always want to be in that dynamicness. And I feel like I listed some of the events that was in the roundup on your website, not your website, but the company's website. We'll talk about your website in a bit after that. These were the 6. The only one I knew about was Broken Windows, so I'm going to say that for last. But it's like we have Girls Who Code, and we have some other ones. So I'll just like start off with Girls Who Code, because I think it's phenomenal that we have, Black Girl Code, and we're just figuring out ways to support women of color in their endeavors of having them have a voice, experiences, and getting them better. So were you part of that? Were you able to work on that?
I wasn't on that project, but I will say we work with a lot of organizations like that, or there will be big name companies that want to focus on a particular group of people, and those are things that we do like to work on. It is important for us to amplify voices of people who are not currently amplified, and so that is one good example. We also really enjoy working on youth projects, and so like one of you're probably gonna name it, I don't know, maybe, but this is a project of Soze's that they did in collaboration with the Filmmakers Fund and Yar Shahidi, called 18 by 18, which is a platform to get youth civically engaged. And so you're getting people or young people wanting to vote and run for office and things like that. And so the young people literally are the future, like not to be cliche, but they are. So that's something that we're really big on. So I think those projects like those are something that's important to the company, something that we firmly believe in and that I personally think are really important.
So we talked about 18 by 18, right? Mm-hmm. Question, is We Vote Next connected to that in a way?
We Vote Next was a slogan, like the slogan of 18 by 18, okay. And we had a summit under 18 by 18 had a summit called the We Vote Next Summit. Okay. And so they're moving into We Vote Next. Can I say that? I don't know.
You want me to edit that out?
Yeah, maybe. So, all right, I'll go back.
I'll edit that out. Edit. Cool.
So 18 by 18 had a summit called We Vote Next, and so they're essentially the same.
Okay, cool. So gonna have to make sure we put that one. And I know for a fact for these three, I think you were a part of the OG experience, mm-hmm. the Museum of Drug Policy, and mm-hmm. definitely I saw all the pictures of like Museum of Broken Windows. Mm-hmm. So let's just go in order. Like, how was it for you with the OG experience? Because that's like the HBO show with Jeffrey.
Yes.
Jeffrey Wright.
Yes.
Ooh. All right, because he's an amazing actor, and I don't want him to feel like I didn't do his name justice.
Yes. So, that was an interesting experience. We don't just do experiential projects, but that is a lot of what we do. And so that one, the purpose, the OG is a film that focuses on this one man who is played by Jeffrey Wright, who was incarcerated, and he is getting out of prison, but it is going through his last days in prison, like his life day to day. And a lot of the actors in the film were people who are currently incarcerated in that particular prison. And so HBO wanted us to produce something, wasn't sure what it was at the time, but wanted us to produce something that would get more African-American / Black identifying people to watch that film or to interact with it in some way. And so we decided to create an exhibit featuring exclusively formerly incarcerated artists to exhibit their work in the space. So that exhibit, and we had the exhibit in Chelsea, which is like prime art scene. So it's like really important to have those voices in that area, in that scene. A lot of people came out and saw the art. There were a lot of like emotional responses to it. And this was something that I would say doesn't directly, it's not about the film. Like, this could have been a standalone project, but we tied the film into it, and it obviously had everything to do with it because these are formerly incarcerated artists. But being able to have them in the space and tell their own stories, and you had a lot of attendees who are formerly incarcerated come in, they felt like a strong response to it. It was a beautiful project. And we did do a series of like dinners in the space, and we had film screening there.
Okay. Yeah. Because I didn't get to go to that one because I feel like sometimes with the thing, life in New York City, it's a lot going on. So with that project, even thinking about formerly incarcerated things, so you said the three piece was People, Passion, Profit? What was it?
People, Planet, Profit.
People, Planning.
Planet.
Yes. Okay, that does make sense. People, Planet, Profit. Obviously, directors don't get mad at me. I was like, passion. No. Okay. So People, Planet, Profit, right? So even when it comes to the OG experience of just getting to that point of showing their artwork, like, was this like a brainstorming type thing where it's like, we wanted to figure out a way to like make this as real as possible for people? Because then you see the effects of, even in the artwork, some people, you're going to see that pain. Obviously, you see with the very visceral reaction with that, right? When y'all get into that think tank, when you come see, because sometimes I'll be looking at it, and I definitely am saving Museum of Broken Windows for last, just because I just feel like when I was walking through it, I felt things, and we'll talk about it more, but it's just like, how do y'all do this? Because this is just, it feels very exhausting, very intense.
Well, we have, I will say, our executive producer at the company, Davine Tripman, she's one of them. She is someone that I work with closely in all these projects, and a lot of the ideas come from her. We have a project at Soze. It is a fellowship called Right of Return, and we provide grants to formerly incarcerated artists in all forms of art, so music, visual art, all of the above. And so she, I believe it was her idea. I don't want to misspeak, but it is a collaborative effort at all times. But I want to say Davine herself is very heavily involved in Right of Return and was the lead producer for the OG experience. And so the idea essentially came off of Right of Return. So it's like we had this huge network of formerly incarcerated artists, and we want to be able to exhibit their art, and especially in this kind of setting and having this much viewership, this would be a prime time to do that. And so that's just something that is almost like obvious to do. A lot of other times, like we'll get, when we have new business or whatever, we'll have like the whole team or some of the team will be able to sit in the room and decide what they want to do. Sometimes the client already knows what they want. They've seen what we've done. We have a pop-up coming up now that was more like, we saw...
Well, I don't even want to say coming around because when this is released, this will have already passed.
Oh,
but
yeah.
This is the sex
workers pop-up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one was like, we've already seen what you've done. Can you do that for this? It was like that kind of situation. And so every time it's almost like, because these experiences, they're all different in their own way, but they have like the same skeleton essentially. And so my role is the visual stuff. And so I know I have to make these things for, it's just like I have the same set of things that I have to make. But my focus is always on like the branding portion and like things like that, where it's more so, like I said before, what I was learning at Temple when I first got into art direction, it was very focused on, am I solving the problem at hand? And am I attracting the right audience? Am I speaking, or am I visually expressing the right thing? Especially with topics like this, it can get really, really tricky. I could use like the wrong color for the issue and it's like extremely offensive. So that's something that I have to consider all the time. So the ideation process, and it's also a never-ending process. So we'll have like a general idea, but certain things that are specific to that exhibit or that museum come up along the way.
Okay. Wow. So Museum of Drug Policy, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't even know the timeline of the order of when these events happened, right? I'm guessing, was drug policy before Broken Windows or after Broken Windows? I think it was before.
Drug policy was before. Museum of Drug Policy has been... There were 4 different, iterations of it. Okay. It was in New York, it was in Montreal, London, and the last one was in Mexico City.
Okay. So how was that process for you when it comes to... I feel like for you, you're probably like the best person to work, because not to say that you're not invested at all, because you know that they exist, but sometimes with people's biases, it gets a little too intense where they don't know how to reel it back. I feel like for you, you're kind of like a blank slate where you see it, just tell me what it is, I'll interpret it, and then I make it happen. Do you feel like sometimes with that, when it comes to the work, it kind of makes it easier for you?
Sometimes it's a lot of research. Sometimes I would prefer it be something that I am directly impacted by. So like, I think Museum of Broken Windows was my easiest project because it's something I'm directly impacted by, and that I see on a day-to-day, something that I've grown up with. Whereas Museum of Drug Policy was something I knew very little to nothing about, but I worked with people who were directly impacted by drug policy, and it varied from each one. That's not a project that I was on from the beginning. I came on to help for London, and I think I was fully on for Mexico City. So that was already like, it had been done twice or 3 times already before, and so I didn't really have much reaction or heavy workload or anything with that. But it is much easier for me if it's something that I think it's much easier for something that I'm either directly impacted by or already know a lot of information about. I think it's the same thing with anything. Like, you want to have a freelance client now. If I'm already familiar with the brand, it's way easier for me to work with them versus me having to like pull all information out of someone's brain to figure out what they...
never good at explanations for that.
It's tough.
We're definitely going to talk about it at the end, but it's a good thing I did the order the way I did, because we have a lot more to talk about with Museum of Broken Windows, and I feel like you were going real hard with like just making your friends like pop out for it, and I think I really appreciate it, because I come outside, but I don't come outside all the time. I come outside. So when you were telling like us and you're telling me like, yo, you should come out to this, I was like, all right, this is Qori stuff. So I'm going to, because I felt that, like that passion. I was like, all right, this must be important because you're really going hard for us to come. And I was like, all right, I'm going to listen to the young guy. I'm going to do it. Yeah, I was walking through. I was just like, it had me fucked up. I think it was like a week thing, and they had like a video thing. So I came back twice. Mm-hmm. I did come back twice for that, and it was like the video, and they had one of the officers, part of like what it was about when it comes to just the infrastructure of the policing in the NYPD and things of that nature. I'm very appreciative for going because I already knew some of the things, but when it comes to when you see the numbers and you see names and it's already real, but it makes it even more kind of like concrete to us. Like, and it's like, yeah, I'm digesting this. It's horrible on my stomach and my thing. How was it for you when it comes to actually, because this was something I know you work on when it comes to like the car, like the whole vehicle. When it comes to like, I think there was like some greenery, like the glass was shattered. And
that was an art piece.
That was just everything. Like they had like the back with all those the toe
tags,
and it was just like, I'm just gonna stop talking. I just want you because it's just like it was very intense, and just even trying to reflect back to it, like how I felt looking at this, like it was a lot.
Yeah, I think why I wanted all of my friends to be present in that space was mostly because I know this is the one thing that I worked on in the past 3 years that I know that most of us can relate to. Broken windows policing, whether you know it by name or not, is something that we are very, very, very familiar with, like seeing cops on the train and stop and frisk and all that stuff. I think that seeing it and seeing like the history of it, the way we had it laid out was a lot different than just thinking of it as a normal day-to-day thing that you see.
Not.
Yeah, it's not. And so I thought that was just really why I wanted to make sure all my friends came out for that.
Because there's just something about, because it's like, I know for how your agency is, like, obviously you have teammates and stuff like that. I remember I got to see some of them, right? Mm-hmm. And when it comes to your impact on it, like the images and stuff like that, how was it like working with those other people? Because I know your response. How was it working with your other team? It's like, because again, you guys do projects like this all the time when it comes to social impact, and you're trying to educate people to understand, yeah, this is important, but this is why this is important. Mm-hmm. How was it like working in that dynamic where like you personally just like, I know some of my friends that need to see this. Like, how was that?
How was it working with
the team in this project? Because I feel like with this one, it's more invested. So I feel like there's going to be a different side of all of us when we're in something that has us really like, leaning forward. And it's like, oh man, I'm like really.
I think it was very similar to me. And I also think that the thing about working with teams on any project, we're all doing our fair share of research to the point where you understand it, to the point where you have a reaction to it. Like you feel the emotional connection to the project, whether you knew about it prior or not. And so, and I also think that we're not doing these, obviously we're doing these for clients. And so the client is obviously invested in that topic. Like it's all very similar experiences to me. I just think that one in particular, because it was something that I was used to and knew about, and I even learned so much in that process. Things that I didn't know about broken windows policing or its history or how it affected the nation. It was just really important to me. I don't know how, it was important to all of us. I can't specifically speak for my colleagues, but for me, it was like super important. But the experience itself, as far as working on it, was just about the same to me.
Okay. So I know I was alluding to like when does Hello Qori start? And I know you're still working on it now. And I was looking at some of the images when it comes to certain things like OK Player. Was that through you or just through?
That's through me. That's
okay. OK Player. They have please don't butcher this. The Inyani Charter School.
Inyani, yes.
Inyani. I was off by a little bit. Dreams Deferred, designed and shot by CT. So, I mean, that's a short kind of like image of the things you worked on. But when it comes to your personal kind of like thing, we could really hear this goddamn fire truck. And we're like high up. That's crazy. These mics are crazy. What is that? Because I know what I think is like awesome about you is you still get the check, but you get multiple checks because,
yeah.
Please don't count her wallet. But just like, I think for you, when I be seeing like, why is she always up? But then when I be seeing you travel and you get to like live, I be like, go off, Queen. Do what you got to do because you be working real hard. But how does that feel? Because I really feel like you dead ass have like 2-3 jobs. Like,
yeah, it is like that. I think that I am obsessed with this. I don't know if this sounds terrible or not, but I love getting money. Like, I just do. And I love being able to, and it's not about like having nice things. It's more being able to live and not worry about counting pennies and do I have enough for this, stuff like that. And I also like to, I'm someone that's very, I share with my friends a lot, not the money per se, but like I'll take, like the other day for Valentine's Day, I took my friend Jordan to the movies to see that Issa Rae movie.
Oh, the photograph?
Yeah, but
Aww.
if I didn't have extra money to do that, I wouldn't be able to. I'm also really, really, really serious right now about getting rid of my debt from Temple. And so that is something like I cannot just have one job to do that. I have to have multiple sources of income. And so those are the things that keep me going, that are like my motivation to be up at 4 a.m. or to stay up till whatever time at night. But I also enjoy being in charge of the process from beginning to end on the creative side, having my own clients and being able to decide at what point am I going to have this phone call with this person? Are we going to have weekly phone calls? Are we going to do this? Like, I'm doing the admin and the creative stuff, which I enjoy. Eventually, I'm not going to enjoy it. I mean, right now, I kind of don't enjoy it because it's getting to be like a lot and it's just me. But it's just something that I'm into. It's literally like my first taste of, I do have my own business, and I keep acting like I don't. I keep saying it's like having my own business, but I do.
It's legit, like an LLC type thing.
I literally have my own business. And so when I usually work on maybe 3 clients at a time outside of Soze, and it is tiring, but it's also a way to get a full breadth of work in my portfolio. It's a way for me to have experience in different things that I'm not able to do at the agency. The agency, of course, is great. I love it, but it's like I have to do this thing for this client. I don't have a say. Well, I do have a say. Let me not say that, but I don't have,
the voice
like,
is not that strong.
Yeah, it's not as strong as where the client is looking on my freelance stuff. The client is just looking to me to advise them on everything. It's the thing on top of that is that my freelancing, like my niche is people of color owned businesses, small businesses,
and the youth.
Yeah, and young people. And so I want to do that because that's my way of, we all want to support Black business and things like that. I think that we could do that, and we could have more prevalent voices in the business world if we had strong branding and if like we looked legit. A lot of times we just don't, and that's like
you'd be looking kind of like in a world with all these big name brands. You'd be looking kind of like, yo, did you go to Paint on like Windows 95? Okay, like
I definitely support small businesses, but I also enjoy to see a small business look big. If my website wasn't called Hello Qori, based on, and eventually I might want to turn my business into like a boutique agency type of thing. It'll still just be me. I'm not hiring anyone. I'm not ready for that.
So not even like an assistant or someone to like handle the admin work?
No, if you get an email from an assistant with a different name, it's really me with a different email. That's how it would be.
Wow. Okay.
So I would like to, and that's a reality for a lot of freelancers. When you contact a lot of these agencies and they're like, oh yeah, me and the team, it's really just them. Juggling every day, doing admin, doing finance, doing the actual creative. They are the CEO, the CCO, they're everything. And so that's something that I might eventually want to do just to have a better positioning. But if my website was like that and it was not called Hello Qori, even if it was, you could look at something like that and think like, oh wow, that's a big brand. Like that's somebody I want to work with, something I want to support.
Very clean, very serious.
Versus me just having like, like a regular rinky-dink website with stuff. Okay. So I'm someone that like I see all these brands, and I think that especially women of color do very, very, very dope things, and like they have businesses that I haven't seen this product before. I think that this service is important, that we need this, but maybe it's their website's hard to read, or maybe like I don't understand their look. Like, it's just certain things that matter a lot. And for me as a consumer, I see it. And so if I see it as a consumer, I could definitely see it as a designer. And that's something that I want to help out with. I don't reach out to clients ever. I don't provide unsolicited advice. I'm very, very against that. But when people do come to me, and I haven't yet to use paid advertising, things like that. All of my clients have been word of mouth, which was like cool to me. But
man, the game.
Yeah, yeah.
I spent some money trying to get some of my shows out and be like, it didn't work. And I
don't even understand how to do it.
God.
So I'm like very, very grateful that word of mouth works in my favor. But all the people that reach out to me, I have them, before we even do anything, I have them fill out like as much as they possibly can. It's guided, so you can fill out like literally each question, but tell me as much as you possibly can about your website, your goals, like what the issue is now or what you're trying to do. And I get to know so much about these brands, whether I work with them or not, whether the deal goes through or not. I like have another person of color owned business in my radar that I could support. So that's something else that I also really enjoy. Yeah.
Qori, so just thinking about your very interesting and still everlastingly like amazing life. I don't know how I even got to everlastingly amazing, but it is. You kind of like knowing kind of your identity and it's like you just don't fit in right now, then kind of finding those places where it's like, we're kind of getting there, kind of like that little Three Little Bears type of thing. It's like getting to the school, Brooklyn Tech, and getting like that integral thing. And I remember even kind of like understanding that maybe being an architect, isn't just for you, and just becoming this, powerhouse of a graphic designer, storyteller, art direction, expert.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing when we just look at it on its core, because I know you, but I didn't know you as much as now. And I think when it goes to, the sky's the limit for you, but you say you want to make your boutique thing, all those things.
Well, I have way bigger plans than that, but
you don't need to spill those right now. The people don't need to. This is not what this is for at all. This is just to appreciate that this part of your journey, and as those things unfold, let them pay their coins to see it. But as we're at the very, very end, I often do in this podcast, we have like this little thing that's like last gem, or like this gem of like, over the course of like just life. Something that you kind of like learned or kind of like experience where this helps you get over humps or helps you just get from one side to the other side. Like what would you say going to like another creative or any person doing something to kind of like let them know like, all right, cool. This is what I got to do. I got to get to it. Like, what would you say? Because, going from like young Qori, like, 16 Qori, 18 Qori, 21 Qori, not saying any more ages because they don't need to know about that. But like, what would you say to the people just like, yo, you can do this. Get the shit together.
I would definitely, my main thing with creatives is to stop finding competition in a negative way on social media. I think that's what stops a lot of people from starting their business or putting this post up or whatever. It's always like we're so wrapped up in likes and will people support this or whatever. There's like no possible way you would know without putting it out there. And I think that I say competition in a bad way because I love competition. And so if you're someone that can look at something and say like, oh, they're a competitor of mine, I love their work, and now I'm going to go do something and see if I can get better or see if I can like make something that's my version of that level, that's good. But if you're looking and you're like, oh, damn, everyone's supporting this person, I'm not going to be able to do this, then I would definitely just not stay off Instagram. Like it's not your space. Or I'm someone that if I ever feel even an ounce of that, I don't follow that person. I don't welcome any of that energy into my life. I'm also someone that doesn't post a lot on Instagram, and I do need to get better at that, but I just don't find any validation or let myself be discredited by Instagram, or by social media. It is a very, very powerful tool and it's useful, but I think it is dangerous to creatives. There are if you're using it for inspiration, but it's also hurting you, there are so many other places to get inspiration from that I just don't think that you need to focus on that. So that is like my big thing, because a lot of imposter syndrome comes from that. It's just a matter of just doing it and stop worrying about like what everyone else is doing. I used to be like that, especially in high school, because obviously I'm in art class and we have open critiques and I'm seeing all this stuff and I'm like, why are they so talented? Like, what the hell? But what they're doing is not what I need to be doing, and that's just that. Like if their style is like this and it's great, my style, to me, if I think it doesn't compare, someone might think that that's actually like really dope and even better than anything they've seen before, stuff like that. So I kind of like let all that social media stuff go to the wayside as far as comparing myself to others.
To let that like tarnish your energy.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I haven't been seeing you post a lot, so I feel like you're just being into like your kind of like feng shui. But Qori, it's been a great conversation.
Thank you.
This is the time that I want you to plug everything. So obviously, you said Hello Qori, it's HelloQori.com. If I'm not mistaken. Anything else you want to just shout out?
My Instagram, though we're not on that at the often, but we will be. My Instagram is Sounds Like Qori.
And that's Qori with a Corey.
Yes, that's it. My actual name is Qori. So
it's like, it's like a play on that name because everyone keeps thinking.
People think I'm a singer or something when they're like, oh, Sounds Like Qori, do you sing? I'm like, no. They're like, do you play it? No, I don't.
No. And it's like the same thing on Twitter.
Yeah.
Right?
Everything's the same.
So if you, do you have any bandwidth for, I don't even know what time when we post it. But anyway, if you do what she does, and she'll gladly take any the request on Hello Qori. So this is grassroots, so not paid advertising because I'm not getting coins for this. But no, it's been a pleasure. So guys, make sure you follow her on those two platforms, Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you reach out to her. She's really, really dope, and I expect more amazing work from her in the future. This is your host, Skip from BK, host of Dreams Money Can Buy. We're signing off. Peace. Hello. Yes, another post-credit scene. Super sorry, guys. But have you tried Anchor? So Anchor is a platform that makes it easier for anybody to really start into the podcast game. So it's no cost to you. It makes it easier for you to make your intro, outro, midtro, anything with music, intro music. They have make easy selection so you can kind of craft up your project to be the way that you like. And it also shares to all the platforms, like with a click of button. You go to Spotify, you'll be on Apple Podcasts, you'll also be on Google Podcasts. Pretty much any of the platforms that you choose that you want to be on, it'll do it for you. So also you can make money off of it when it comes to the platform trying to monetize your content to people that would probably want to advertise through your content. Like content. So, with that being said, just make sure you try out the Anchor app. I'm using it. I know some of my peers are using it. It's just a great platform, and it gives you control at, zero cost to you to get it done. So make it happen. Also, if you haven't, because you listen to Qori B, such a very interesting and dynamic graphic design, illustrator, storyteller when it comes to the visuals and the work. Please follow her on Sounds Like Qori, and that's Qori with a Corey on Twitter and on Instagram. And her company is Soze. So it's not her company, but the company that she's a part of. They do amazing work, have an amazing installation. So definitely keep in the know about that agency and just, work with Qori on her website, Hello Qori, when it comes to if you want any of her consultations, anything to help make your brand go from level 1 to level 100. So you know what I'm saying? So make sure you do that. Also, follow your boy Skip from BK. You're here because I'm one of the hosts. I am the host, and you can follow me on anything: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, if you actually want to keep up with that too. And also make sure you follow Cove Alpha. Cove Alpha is the platform that powers Dreams Money Can Buy. So if you want to stay in the know, follow Cove Alpha on Twitter and on Instagram. You can even follow the hashtag, Dreams Money Can Buy pod, or Dreams Money Can Buy podcast, whichever one I feel like I'm going to keep long term. And before we go, major shout out to Slept On Creatives. That is one of our collaborators when it comes to just making sure that the audio is good for you guys, the video is good for you guys. So if you're watching it instead of listening to the podcast, you just have a great experience. So without further ado, just make sure you follow them on Instagram, Slept On Creatives, and also follow them on YouTube, which is also on Slept On Creatives, and follow their projects when it comes to Amare and other things that will be released in the coming dates. So guys, have a great day, as in morning, afternoon, evening, nighttime, and see you next week. Deuces.